Parenting is the hardest job, and there is not a close second. Raising high-performing teen athletes or performers? That's a high-stakes job. I'm Nate Crandall, joined by fellow certified high-performance coach Steve Galley. We coach ambitious parents like you, and also your high-performing teens, because when you both level up, connection and results don't just improve, they multiply. Welcome to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest you don't want to miss.
Hello, everyone. If you're wondering where Nate is, he has been thrown in jail. And no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Nate would not get thrown in jail, but he's unable to be here. And I want to encourage you to do something before you listen to this episode. You don't absolutely have to do it, but if you have a chance to go back and listen to episode 121 with Dr. Andrea Mata, you should do that before you listen to this one. Although you could listen to this one and then go back. So I am excited to do part two. We don't know what happened with all of part one. I told her on the previous episode, it was either a Michigan fan, because you're a big Ohio State fan. It was a Michigan fan, little sabotage.
Yeah.
It could have been the Ohio heat wave you were going through.
Yeah.
Or aliens. I think it was aliens. But because
I think it's probably the Ohio heat.
Hey, there's that one comet that Atlas or whatever that's flying around the solar system right now. I think maybe, who knows, maybe it was Atlas. But parents, you're in for a treat today. We have Dr. Andrea Mata. She is a TED Talk speaker. She is a clinical psychologist. She is a super mom. She is a wife. She's a mental performance coach. She's an author. She's a keynote speaker. And she's probably 5 other awesome things that I don't know about that. I don't know.
I think you got them all.
I hit them all.
I
Anyway,
think so.
And don't be jealous, but I have an autographed copy of her book and the best bookmark in the world. We got Coop the Poop right there. So at the end of the episode, we'll tell you all the different places where you can get in contact with Andrea. But I want to hit on emotional regulation because as a former high school coach and parent of 2 boys that I coached, I'm so interested in what you do on the sidelines of a local football team that you help. But Dr. Dre, love that nickname too. Dr. Dre, what would you tell parents who are otherwise relatively calm, but they have a crazy son or daughter who likes to throw temper tantrums on the field, and we're talking teenagers, high school players. So this isn't the 5-year-old on the cereal aisle. This is out on the field, and they're very demonstrative. What could you tell those parents in order to help them, to help their son, to help their daughter?
Yeah, so the biggest thing for me is becoming more mindful of, I call it your numbers. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you are super chill, you are just relaxed, 10 being like you are losing your mind and it's not cute. To help the child or the teenager figure out at what number do you start to see red, meaning that once you hit that number, you're gone and you don't remember anything that happens after that. And then you probably want to dial it back maybe 2 or 3 spots from there. And that's when the teenager needs to figure out, okay, as soon as I hit this number, I need to start doing things that are going to calm me down. So a few weeks ago, our head coach was laughing because one of our running back was like freaking out and just negative self-talk, irrational thinking, just being obnoxious running back. And at the beginning of the first half, I looked at him and I'm like, I'm going to need you to hum the national anthem. And he looks at me and goes, what? And I'm like, start humming the national anthem. And he's like, I'm just standing next to him and he's just humming the national anthem, because what happens is humming actually starts to pull you out of fight or flight. So it starts to regulate you emotionally. And so like later on, the head coach was like, yeah, I was like, what the hell is she having her do? I'm like, no, humming, like just have them hum. And so like humming's one way. I'll have them take like whatever object is in their sport. So it's a racket, a football, a ball, a mitt, a hat, something along those lines. And I'll start having them tell me, tap into 4 of their 5 senses. Obviously, not taste, because I don't think anyone wants to taste like a football or anything like that. That would be gross. And so I'll start having them, explore this object from 4 of their 5 senses, and that will also kind of regulate them. So like I try to help them figure out, okay, when do they start seeing red? Let's dial back from 2 to 3 spots from there, and then as soon as you hit that number, that's when you start humming, you start tapping into 4 of your 5 senses. Maybe you even give them something for like a 5th sense, you could always do like a big red gum, is like that burst of intense flavor. Yeah, what else do I have
Cinnamon.
them
Yeah.
do? Like cinnamon, something sour, something like along those lines. What else will I have them do? I'll have them obviously breathe. So I'm a big fan of 5-2-8 breathing. So inhale for 5, hold your nose or hold the breath for 2, exhale through your mouth for 8. Big thing is your exhale has to be longer than your inhale. Or I'll just have them name things that are orange that they see, because orange is not a common color. So I'll just be like, okay, look it around and tell me everything that you see is orange. Or I'll have them, I did this just on Friday when one of our players was emotionally dysregulated. I had them start spelling out the what they saw on the scoreboard. So he was like FIN, and I'm like, keep going, like over and over again. So it's anything that you can do. So we have like this emotional mind, and then we have logical mind. And when they're emotionally dysregulated, they're in that emotional mind. In order to get them out of that emotional mind and more towards logical mind, we need to throw logic at them. So they have to count, they have to tap into their senses, they have to spell things, they have to hum, anything along those lines will help them regulate right then and there.
So you're saying this is better than yelling relax at them?
Yes, absolutely. Yelling relax at someone's probably not going to relax.
Right. Yeah. And I want to say that sometimes parents, they're the old phrase that a prophet is not welcome in his own country. And so you're an outside voice. You're a different voice than the coach, than the parent, and you've established credibility. And I'm assuming that there's a good level of trust. And so they're going to start doing some of those practical tips, which, by the way, those are incredible. So quick, easy to do.
Yep.
And if you're familiar with them, it's something that you could start taking an athlete through.
Yeah.
But what about the parent that is, maybe there's a trust issue? And obviously you're not going to do this maybe at home when they're really agitated. What advice would you give to parents who want to implement those tips that you're just talking about, but they don't know when to do it? Should they do it during a blow up at home, or should it be something that's talked about during a moment of peace and calm?
Yeah, so it's a different ball game. Like when I am a clinical child psychologist and a sports performance coach, and I'm doing it to my players in the moment, I know how to read their body language. I know how to read their facial cues. I know what's escalating them versus what's going to de-escalate them. So I have all of those ins and outs. But for parents, what I would do, and you brought up a really good point, Steve, is you teach them these strategies when everything is cool, calm, and collected. Then when they become emotionally dysregulated, and this is probably going to trigger a few people, when teenagers become emotionally dysregulated, I will simply tell them to go pull themselves together. And a lot of the time, and I do this to my own kids, I tell them, like, when they get emotionally dysregulated, I'll be like, hey, you need to go pull yourself together. And I know that I said this on a YouTube video, and someone recently told me that did not sit well with me. And I get it. And we actually created another video all about this whole idea of pull yourself together. But I want teenagers to have the ability to literally pull themselves together, because when they're emotionally dysregulated, we need them, regardless of where they are at, to have the skills to regulate themselves. We don't want them to have to rely on somebody else to help them pull themselves together. And so teaching them these skills and practicing these skills, it's called overlearning, practicing these skills when everything is cool, calm, and collected, so that when they get emotionally dysregulated and they start to notice that they're going above that number, then they can start humming, they can start breathing, they can start tapping into their senses. Another one that I didn't mention and I actually really love is I will tell my athletes to take a walk. I know this happened probably, how long ago was it? So it was probably like my second season, it was my second season with the team. And something happened with our best player. I'm not going to say what it was, but something happened between our best player and our offensive coordinator. Right at halftime, they had some issues. And our best player, who's not a small teenage man, he blew up, or he was blowing up, and I looked at him and he like threw his Gatorade bottle, and I looked at him and I'm like, take a walk. And he's like, and I'm like, take a walk. And so he just started walking and I was walking behind him and I didn't say anything, but we just like did a little bit of a loop around. And then like we went to the locker room. I'm like, are you good now? And then I looked right, I'm like, you're going to take another walk. And so then he just went and took another walk and then he was fine after that. So like just the movement of like getting
movement.
out helps.
Yeah. I know something that Nate and I are really big on is that parents need to model proper behavior. Would you encourage the crazy parent? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. No, I'm going to leave it in. But the parent that blows up. So maybe you have one or the other, or it could be both. Would you encourage them to, you need to work on this, you need to do these things yourself, and then share them with your son or daughter?
Yeah, because I think the biggest thing that doesn't get talked a lot about, but it's like more is caught than taught. So kids are going to take in a lot more than what we are modeling for them, than what we are actually saying. And so if we are losing our minds on a regular basis, well, then chances are your kid's going to lose their mind on a regular basis. But if they're taking deep breaths and if they're taking walks, then they're going to be more likely to do the same thing. So yes, parents themselves should be practicing these strategies as well.
I love it. One of Nate's favorite sayings is that as parents, we're on stage 24/7, 365. And they're seeing everything as well as hearing everything. Okay, let's get into I don't know if you have your boxing gloves on, but let's get into we're not going to fight. You are you leave no doubt about where you stand on this whole idea of gentle parenting, which I don't know how long it's been around, but when I hear the term gentle parenting, I think of golden retriever puppies. I think of all my great leaders that have told me to be kind, to be a good person, to treat others well. I think of the golden rule, and I think of all those things. But gentle parenting actually has had kind of a big backfire, maybe as a way to put it. So I'm just going to turn you loose. You're in the ring, and your opponent right now is gentle parenting. Go.
Yeah, so gentle parenting's been around for about 15 to 20 years, and it's been mostly pushed by parenting influencers that have talked about like, we need to. So the big three premises of gentle parenting is you need to validate your child's emotions, like focus in on emotions, even though emotions are like the one part of our psychology triangle. I think we talked about that in part one, our psychology triangle that we have absolutely no control over. The second premise of gentle parenting is we're going to avoid using rewards and punishments, which makes absolutely no sense because it's the main way to motivate human beings, because we look at behavioralism. And I always say, like, what's the main reason why the vast majority of Americans go to work? It's not because like they're passionate and they're like, they love the work and they're internally motivated. It's because they're getting paid. And so like, but we're going to get rid of rewards and punishments, which then teaches kids to, oh, they don't have to do things and whatever. And then the last one is that gentle parents tend to treat their child as if they are their equal, which puts a crap ton of pressure on kids because they're not, or teenagers, because they're not developmentally there yet to be making those kind of decisions. And it just starts to ruin. I was in a session just yesterday, and it starts to, this gentle parenting and like teaching or treating your child as if they're your equal starts to actually have negative impacts on marriages as well. So Steve, I think you were absolutely correct. There is a backlash of gentle parenting going on right now. I'm super excited for it. Like, I am here for it because I've been saying for probably, it'll be 2 years in early 2026 that I've been saying gentle parenting doesn't work and we need to stop doing it.
Do you find more people coming over to your side, joining you in your corner?
I think so, because it was so funny. It was so I was on the Tamron Hall show, and when the Tamron Hall, all about gentle parenting and how it doesn't work, and that show aired, and then I went to a party for one of my friends, and she was like, I just watched it. She was like, it was amazing. And then she was telling all the other women that were at the party about it. And then all of a sudden, all the women wanted to talk to me because they wanted to talk about how they've realized gentle parenting doesn't work, or maybe their daughters or their sons are doing gentle parenting and their grandparents, and they're like, it doesn't work. And I'm like, I know. And so I think there's more people coming to realize this really doesn't work. And maybe we should listen to the person who's been saying gentle parenting doesn't work for 2 years now and hear what she has to say in regards to parenting.
By the way, while it's fresh in my mind, how can people look at that? Is there a recording out there of you on the show that people can
Yeah, so it
look
was
up?
interesting to It was actually interesting to be on the Tamron Hall show because originally I was supposed to be on one segment. They're like, we're going to have you come in, we're going to have you do a segment. And then probably 2 weeks before I was recording, they're like, hey, we're going to have you on the whole show. And I was like, oh, okay. So if you go to YouTube and you type in Tamron Hall and then gentle parenting, there is 5 segments, and I am in all 5 segments.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Listeners, viewers, you can look that up. I want to explore this more.
Yeah.
So I know one thing that Nate and I focus on is the third one that you talk about, this idea of being their equal. And we're very much against permissive parenting, where it's just I heard this so often when I was a teacher, and I think you'll probably laugh at this, but when you're a high school teacher for over 30 years, you hear all sorts of funny conversations before class, after class, even during class, but mostly before and after. And I'm not intentionally eavesdropping, but you just hear these conversations that the kids have. And this one I think this has been going on forever. But somebody would talk about how their parents, they might say something derogatory, or like, oh yeah, my parents are so strict. And then you would have the other teen would say, oh, my parents are so cool. They kind of let me do what I want.
Yeah.
So how does a parent balance this idea of maintaining the position of authority, being the adult in the room, and also being kind? And because I think sometimes when people, and I've had these conversations with people, and I'll say, I'm not in favor of gentle parenting, and they almost look at you like they're expecting the horns to come out of your head, and you're ready to pull out the bullwhip, and your kids are chained to a pole when they go to timeout, or
Right.
So how do you parent well without falling into the bad traps that are found in gentle parenting?
Yeah. So the phrase that I always use is set high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies. And so so I think what's happened is, so Gen X and millennials were parented using more militant parenting styles, like my way or the highway, what is typically referred to as an authoritarian parenting style. And then the Gen Xers and the millennials were like, we're never going to parent like that. We're going to do it completely different. And so what they did was they swung completely to the opposite end. And that's how we got gentle parenting. And I'm saying, y'all just skip this beautiful middle ground that's called
Mm.
authoritative parenting, which is high expectations within the context of the warm and fuzzies, that has been shown for decades to lead to the best developmental outcomes. I'm like, so just do that. And then you get to be the authority figure, but then you also get to have strong relationships with your kids. Like I had a friend stay with us for 4 days this past weekend, and she looked at me and she's like, your kids just do what you tell them to do the first time. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, and they mess around with you and they love you and they're giving you hugs and all. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, because when you parent well, they will listen to you on the first time because they know that if they don't, then they're going to get a consequence. And then they also know that like you can be love and warming and have a great relationship with them as well. Like parenting doesn't have to be such a drag. I think that's the thing. Like whenever you see, at least when I see, maybe it's just my algorithm on Instagram, it's always like, oh, parenting is so terrible and it's so exhausting and da 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 da. And I'm like, it doesn't actually have to be that way. It can be really enjoyable and it can be fun. But the first thing is your kids have to listen to you, because if your kids aren't listening to you, then you just have resentment and you are frustrated and then you don't want to have fun with them and they don't want to have fun with you.
Wow, where do I start with that? I think it's so true of so many things, not just in parenting and coaching, but we as a society will swing that pendulum. If it goes too far in one direction, we think we have to balance it out by going completely to the other end of the spectrum. Which,
Right.
anyway, I think you described it very well. How you get to authoritative parenting, and you can still be the good person, loving person, and you create that relationship. You used a word that Nate and I love to focus on, and that is connection. So you have extensive experience with this high school football team, and you have your own clients, and you have your own laboratory, you have your house, you have your home. So how do we mess up our connections with our teens? Are there some common things that you see that you just automatically start nodding your head and it's like, this is where things have gone south?
So I think the first one is a lot of the times teenagers want to vent. And when they come in and they are connecting with you and they're venting, what you will automatically do is you will go into lecture mode and they will tell you information. And then all of a sudden you go into lecture and they don't want to be lectured at. They literally just want you to listen and not give any feedback. And they want you to validate their emotions in that moment. So I think that's a big thing, is when you are with teenagers and they are venting, they don't necessarily want you to fix it. They just want someone to listen and not say like, I understand, because there's two cognitive traps that teenagers experience. They're called personal fable, which they think they are super unique and and no one's ever experienced anything that they've experienced. And then the other one is imaginary audience, which is they think everyone is watching them all of the time and care about them as much as they care about themselves. And so they experience those two things. So what happens a lot of the time, parents will say like, oh, I understand. And then the next thing out of the teenager's mouth is like, you don't understand anything. And you've just now stepped into it because now they're completely shutting you out and they won't hear anything that you have to say. And because you've just made this mistake of like saying, oh, I understand, because again, they're an emotional mind. They're not really thinking logical at that moment.
Wow, I think we could bring a whole bunch of adults into a room and have a little conversation about personal fable and imaginary audience.
Oh, for sure. It's one of my favorite topics. So when I was a professor, it was one of my favorite topics to talk about, because it's always like the example I would always give with personal fable. They think they're so unique and no one's ever experienced the first breakup. Like they have a breakup and you're like, oh, and you've been broken up with, and you're like, oh, I understand what you're going through. And they're like, you can't possibly understand. And then all of a sudden the parent gets heightened and then the teenager gets more heightened. And then they're just like, nah, 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 nah. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like you don't really understand what they're going through. Like you do, but they don't get that at that moment in time.
Stop watching me. Stop watching me too. The whole imaginary audience thing that cracked me
Yeah,
up.
the
But
imaginary. Oh, yeah, because
how
they think everyone cares about like what they had for lunch. No one cares about your turkey sandwich. But again, if you're the parent and you're saying that to them, like that's probably a little harsh and probably not what they want to hear at that moment in time.
right. How helpful to understand that in advance that you might possibly be walking into that. My teens are older now,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, parenting is just a piece of cake now. Since they're adults, it's so easy. But
Yeah.
I would probably screw the whole thing up because I would say, Dr. Dre told me this is personal fable. This is personal fable. You are.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
No,
Just
that's
keep it in
probably.
your, that's the filter. The filter. You filter it. You keep it in your mind. You keep your mouth shut, and then you let them have their moment.
Okay, let's give them some duct tape. So if you've made some mistakes, you've gone into lecture mode, which I 100% agree. That is because we do have knowledge. In fact, you may have some great information to give them, but in that moment, that's not the thing to do.
Right.
So besides listening, besides just zipping it and letting them vent and listen, what's another good way that parents can transform the connection with their teen?
So the other one that I'm a big fan of is letting them experience natural consequences, not stepping in and like
Short of
telling
death, right?
short of death and like personal injury. Some
Right.
personal injuries. Parents really have to decide when it comes to natural consequences, how risk averse are they? Some parents, I
Right.
remember I had a mom and she's like, he was climbing a 40-foot tree. And I was like, and she's like, he could fall and break his leg. And I was like, and then it was funny because then 2 days later, my 6-year-old fell out of a tree, probably like 5 feet up, and she was fine. She split her pants, and that was highly entertaining. Her and I had to walk behind her to cover her little tushy from being out because she had slit her pants. But like again, it's like natural consequences because the alternative, if you don't use natural consequences, the alternative is you're nagging them all the time, and teenagers don't like that either. And so letting them experience those natural consequences short of death or personal injury to your level, let them figure it out on their own.
I love that. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think back to my childhood and you'll see this all over the internet now in memes and different things. And there's a lot of young parents nowadays that are asking, so you really were just kind of turned loose and you went out and you came home at dark, and that was pretty normal for my childhood.
Yeah.
My parents weren't always saying, I mean, is it bad to say be careful? Because I heard that a lot, but be careful, and also heard have fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm interested on your thoughts on the be careful.
So the be careful. So one thing that I am cautious about parents using be careful is because a lot of the time they're doing it when their child is kind of testing out, exploring what their bodies can do. And the issue with be careful is if you're constantly telling them to be careful, they're not able to listen to their own bodies and figure out what their bodies can and cannot do. And again, you're not allowing them to experience those natural consequences. And if you're constantly telling them to be careful and you're overriding them listening to their bodies, then what can happen in extreme cases is the child develops obsessive compulsive disorder because they stop trusting their 5 senses. Because someone has been overruling, you as the parent have been overruling their senses and them listening to their own bodies. That's another reason why I tell parents to tell them, tell your child to pull themselves together and then step back and let them go pull themselves together. Because like, if you're sitting there like, okay, take deep breaths and then do this and then do this, if this, it is like, they don't know, they can't do trial and error to figure out what's working and what's not working.
Do you see the be careful thing? By the way, I think I have a t-shirt in mind that says be careful about the be careful thing. But
yeah, be careful about be careful.
Does that extend into the teen years too?
I think so. Like you could say it differently. I know what you're trying to say, and it's like, hey, kind of listen to. I would say instead of be careful, it's like, hey, listen to your body, listen to your mind, like listen to your
Right.
intuition. Those things are important. Common sense and your five senses. Teenagers right now aren't listening to them, and that's why ever since COVID, we've had a significant increase in obsessive compulsive disorder.
Very interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to throat punch that.
Exactly. Because, and I
So
think
is
like
that
taking
something
more of
you
a
see
step
a
back.
lot of?
Obsessive
Go
compulsive
ahead.
disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you seeing a lot of that in your
Mm-hmm.
practice?
Yep. I would say probably a good quarter to a third of my clients are have obsessive compulsive disorder.
What do you tell that parent? Besides, they
That
need
pair.
your help.
So a lot of the time is we will do exposures with them. So like I teach them, there's a whole sequence that I go through. I teach them like what is anxiety, what is obsessive compulsive disorder, why is it working for our bodies, or why is it not working for our bodies anymore. I teach them relaxation. I then teach them cognitive strategies to deal with the obsessions, and then we go into exposures. So we create a list of situations that make them anxious, and then I make them go into those situations either in real life or imaginally, like in their head. And I make the parents go along with it, and it makes some parents really, really uncomfortable. Like I have one client right now who's a teenager and they have obsessive compulsive disorder, and one of their parents just can't, it makes them so uncomfortable to watch their child struggle with the obsession and the compulsion. So then they go in and they save them, and then it just is making the situation worse. So much that now we're having to look at elevating the client's care because they're not doing the exposures how we need the exposures to be.
Right. It sounds like you end up coaching the parents a little bit
Oh yeah.
in these situations. Yeah. That would be tough because we do love our kids, and we pretty easy to go into rescue
Yes.
mode.
And we need to like resist that and not go into rescue mode.
So is it just a matter of continuing to pound that point home with that parent and
Yes.
encouraging them
And saying like
Yeah.
like a lot of the time I'm like, it's because like a phrase that you used a few minutes ago, Steve, was be kind. It is kind to let your child struggle. It doesn't seem like it's kind, but it is actually kind to let them struggle.
I'm leaving a big pause here because I want the AI editor to definitely pull that out as a clip. That's incredible. Yeah, but it's a little counterintuitive to what the way we normally think. I love that. Okay, we're going to finish up with the obligatory tell people all the different places where they can find Dr. Dre. And then I'm going to finish up with two things. One that you're really going to love.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I know where to find you, but where can these
Yeah.
other people find you?
So website is andreadmata.com. So that's one option. You can find me on LinkedIn. So Andrea D. Mata, PhD. And then I am on Instagram and YouTube. So I have a lot of videos on YouTube. And for both Instagram and YouTube, you just type in DRDREMATA and you'll be able to find me. Probably starting in the new year. This is exciting. I will probably, even though it hurts my soul, start getting more active on TikTok to try to get that reach out there to help more parents.
Dr. Dre, the real Dr. Dre.
Mm-hmm.
Nate gets nervous about saying that. He thinks that we're gonna get in trouble or something. Anyway.
I've talked
Dr.
with
Dre
other
on
people
TikTok.
about it, and it's like if Dr. Dre were to come and sue me, that would actually be amazing for me because the publicity alone would like elevate
Absolutely.
and increase the visibility. So I don't really want him to sue me, but it probably
Right.
wouldn't be the worst thing ever, according to my PR person.
Yeah. So, okay, here's a little surprise for our viewers and listeners. I wasn't planning on bringing this in. This isn't part of the two finishing cool things I was going to do. if you're going to do TikTok, you've got to dance. Before I retired from teaching, the cheerleaders came in one day and said, "Oh, hey, Coach Galley, we're doing these Christmas TikTok dances." And like 30 minutes later, they said, "Okay, it's up. You're doing this. I'm glad it didn't go viral. I'm glad people didn't really know about it because it was terrible." But you actually are in a dancing. Tell us about your dancing thing. Has it happened yet? Or is it still in the works?
So it was last Thursday. So Toledo, there's a fundraiser called Thriving Like a Star, and it's Toledo's version of Dancing with a Star. So I was asked to be a celebrity dancer. I put celebrity in quotations all the time. And I was paired with a professional dancer. His name's Dom Glover. I love him. And him and I started practicing at the end of August. We'd practice on Sunday afternoons and then Wednesday nights for about 2 hours. And he choreographed this awesome, like he listened to like what I wanted, because I told him I don't want a stuffy like ballroom dance. Like I want fun, I want high energy. And so he was like, okay. And he listened to my favorite artist, which is Pink. And so we did a Pink song, like Feel Good Time. And we did this whole thing and we did it and it was amazing. And we were told that we were by far the funnest dance of the night. We did not win because the celebrity dancer that won was like, she's taken many a years of dance lessons. And so she won. And I was like, that's a little unfair, but I don't have any control over it.
That's unfair. So there should be some type of protest process where you can file a protest. Well, I could have predicted from the beginning without even knowing any of the other participants. I could have predicted that yours was going to be the most fun.
Well, yeah.
Without any question. Yeah.
Yeah, because we were like, we don't want ballroom. And it was funny because there was actually a professional judge there. Like there was a panel of 5 judges and one was a professional judge. And she looked at Dom, my dance partner, and she's like, you should never do ballroom. And he's like, great, because I'm not a ballroom dancer.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, I've got a question for you. But before I do, you work with younger ages as well as teens.
Yeah. And college students, yeah.
And college students. But this book, the number 2, it's hard to say it with a straight face, okay? The number 2 parenting book. And if you want to know why it's called that, you got to listen to episode 121, or you buy the book, and in the first few pages, you'll be highly entertained to find out where this name came from. But this really, I love practical, and you have it down here in the line. Practical tips. If a parent really wants some great stuff, this is great stuff, because it is not, if you just want a whole bunch of theory, you have insomnia and you're having trouble falling asleep, go read the journal articles and go read the 500-page book or what. This is real stuff here. So I want to really encourage people to get your book. Okay.
It's available on Amazon.
Amazon. Yes. And if they go to you,
they come to me, I will send them a autographed copy and they can get a Coop the Poop bookmark.
There you go. There's my autograph right there from Dr. Dre. Okay. So for this next question, before I ask it, you kind of need to show everybody your sweatshirt there. And we've got the little Buckeye helmet on the shelf. Right now, as of this recording, the defending national champs are undefeated and ranked number 1 in the country. And it's kind of been somewhat of a boring season for them. They're just kind of taking care of business and very, very little drama, at least from the outside. Maybe within the Buckeye community, there's some drama. By the way, I'm going to send you this picture privately, but I was behind a guy the other day here in Utah that had a personalized plate that said "Go Bucks." And I was wondering, what is that? And then I looked up on the back window and there was an Ohio State sticker. So then I figured it out. So there's a Buckeye fan out here. I then watched him run. He ran 2 red lights after that and cut 3 people off. I was very highly disappointed in him. No, just kidding. Okay, I do not know what happened, but I can't hear you anymore. Can you hear me?
You can probably hear me now. I touched
So
my
let's
microphone.
that's
That was me.
so that's all right. We'll fix it. So I'm
So I
trying to
was saying
remember
you
when
could
you
go
took.
back to the air. You could go to any airport in the United States, and if you yell out OH, I can guarantee you someone will yell back IO, regardless of where you are in the United States.
Wow, I'm going to embarrass the people around me and try that now.
Yep. It's crazy. Like I remember when they won the first. You remember when the college playoff started? What was it, like 2014? It's funny because they had just won the national championship, like the very first one or whatever. And then we were traveling to the NCAA convention, and I was with our athletic director at the university that I worked at, and our assistant athletic director. And I did not have any Ohio State stuff on. But there was another couple that had Ohio State stuff on, and I just looked at them and I smiled. And then the guy looks at me in the airport and goes, and I was like, IO. And the assistant athletic director was, you don't have any Ohio State stuff on. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Funny. Okay, here's the question, which this is a surprise question. I have been so fascinated to know what Ohio State fan. Actually, you don't have to answer for the collective group. You can answer for you. But your team, your beloved Buckeyes, won the national championship last year, but lost the in-season conference game with your hated, heated, despised rival, the Michigan Wolverines.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard somebody on a sports talk show ask, I think they're not very happy with the national championship because they lost to Michigan. I think that game's more important than the national championship. So I want to know how you, Dr. Dre, a Buckeye fan, how did you deal with that? I know this year you're hoping that they win both of those. But how did you
Yes.
deal with losing that game against Michigan, which is so big in that rivalry? And then weeks later, you go on and win the national championship. Was it a tarnished trophy?
No. Like I was at the national championship game. I don't know if you know this, but I was at the national championship game.
I did
was
not know
sitting
that.
fifth. I was on the 5-yard line, 13 rows up, because I was sitting with the Ohio State football team players, like family and friends. And it was an amazing experience. And so,
Wow.
like, if you were to ask, because my husband came with me, like, if you were to ask my husband, who's even he is the diehard fan, I will take them. But no, he's like, Michigan, what? Like, we just won the national championship game. And so I think, like, if you talk to the vast majority of Ohio State fans, they're just so excited that we won the national championship game, and they don't necessarily care about Michigan. But then it's interesting because if you talk to a Michigan fan, they're like, yeah, but you guys lost against us. And we're like, we don't care. We won the natty. So, like, so it'll be interesting to see what happens this year but it's been that, like, we've lost to Michigan the last few years. I don't know the statistics, but I don't know if Ryan Day has even beat Michigan yet. But he's still, like, it's so funny because when the last few years when he's lost to Michigan, everyone's like, fire Day, fire him, get rid of him. I'm like, y'all do realize he's only lost like 5 total games across,
he has like a high 80s or 90% win percentage.
Right. And I'm like, why are we firing? He just lost to Michigan. Like, okay, I get it.
Right.
But, like, come on now. He just won the natty.
All right. Now I know. I've been wondering about that for months. Okay, this is awesome. I appreciate you so much, Andrea. Nate's going to be sad that he missed this. And, well, he is already sad that he's missing this. I hope I carried his weight for him. Let's finish by giving, because we joke around a lot, but we're talking about a serious thing, the mental health crisis with Gen Z and some of these things that are going on, like the OCD that you're dealing with so many of your clients. finish us up with an encouraging word to parents who maybe are the pooped out parents, the overwhelmed parents, and are a little bit discouraged right now.
So I talk about it in the second chapter of the book. And I talk about how you as a parent can always recover no matter what you've done in the last 5 seconds, last 5 minutes, last 5 years, last 15 years. You can always recover as a parent because you can always develop new skills. Whether those are individual coping skills, whether those are relationship skills, whether those are parenting skills, like you can always develop new skills that can make you live the life that you want to live.
I don't have anything to add to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nate Crandall and Steve Galley would like to thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you love what you're experiencing and learning from the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast, please like, comment, and or leave a glowing review of this episode and the show. And to further help Nate and Steve expand their reach and impact thousands of parents, athletes, and performers, please share the show and subscribe to the Stop Parenting and Start Coaching podcast channel on YouTube. And if you want to explore further to see what Nate and Steve are creating to help parents of athletes and performers everywhere, please visit their website at createtransformbecome.com. That's createtransformbecome, all one word, .com. There you will find a growing number of tools and resources to help you elevate your parenting. Thanks again for tuning in. Now go create a magical relationship with your athlete or performer.